So once again, thank you for being here. Thank you to our guest presenters. Thanks for all the participants. I'm very excited about this masterclass in particular. It started as a Soundtrap with marching band, and really then I realized, well, no, this is really for all ensembles. I think that there's going to be tons of music teachers around the world that are going to be really getting a lot of value and information out of this. So thank you for being here. We are inviting Dr. Alex Smith and Dr. Ian McClaflin and Shelby Schultz from the University of Central Missouri. They're going to be walking us through a couple of cool techniques, showing us how they've been using Soundtrap with their ensembles. I'm just going to pretty much turn it over to them and kind of play the role of host. Let me know if there's any questions. I'll be watching the chat and helping to move things along, but you're in great hands with these guys. A couple of things real quick before I hand over the reins. Soundtrap is part of Spotify, and this is the overall mission of Spotify. And I think that as music educators, you and we are playing a big role in that and shaping this new world that we have and shaping how music and music education is changing. And Soundtrap is also playing a big part of that. And we've always been about making music creation simple and collaborative for everyone, music and storytelling. But obviously today we're focusing on music. Here are a couple of resources to check out. We've got a certified educator course, as well as this very similar course for students on YouTube. They're both totally free. You can check them out. And then we also have the EDU blog where we're sharing all kinds of lesson plans, stories, events, calendar of webinars and things like that. So that is it from me. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alex, and he's going to take it away.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having us, first of all. And thanks to Taylor and Soundtrap for having us do this. We're really excited about being here. So I'm Alex Smith. I'm an assistant professor of percussion at University of Central Missouri, and this is my colleague, Dr. Ian McClaflin, who works with me with all percussion things related. And this is Shelby Schultz, who's our marching percussion section leader. And both of them will be assisting in some of these demonstrations we're going to give. So super huge thanks for them to them for being here today. Really quick before we get started, I just wanted to share a handout that it's really simple, but I just wanted to share that in the chat that we're going to kind of follow along with as we move through the presentation. Let me know if there's any issues of access there, but everybody should be able to view that PDF. Good. So we're just going to essentially cover 3 topics, and these are just 3 ways that we've kind of used Soundtrap at UCM over the course of really since August. The first one is just we've used it as a creative composition tool, and also kind of just as a tool for learning how to use the program. We initially wanted to use the program as a rehearsal tool, which brings me to the second point, which is using Zoom and Soundtrap together as a rehearsal and recording tool. We'll take you through both of those processes. And then lastly, we'll finish with one that we just started experimenting a little bit with, and that's actually recording multiple people together at the exact same time using some coordinated microphone muting and also some monitoring in Soundtrap, which has been super fun. But we will kind of just take you through both or all 3 of those procedures. The handout is very bare bones, but it's mainly going to be demonstration. So let's go ahead and get into the first topic, which is creative composition. So again, in August, we were told that our marching band camp, usually it's a week in person, that it was going to be entirely virtual just due to the nature of the pandemic. So we wanted to come up with some sort of approach to music making that allowed us to do that together in some sort of synchronous fashion. So we used this creative composition approach to learning Soundtrap, and students would work in Zoom breakout rooms with small groups to work on just short composition projects to kind of get a feel for how to, things like setting their microphone, things like record enabling, how to adjust region sizes and all kinds of things like that. So Also, using Soundtrap, this was kind of the cool thing we were doing, or that I kind of enjoyed. Using Soundtrap with Zoom allowed students to share their screen and their audio. So essentially, like while a student was working on something, they could share their screen and audio and kind of give a demo as to what it was they were thinking. And also, they could kind of technologically troubleshoot things if a student was having an issue with any Soundtrap related thing. I'd also just doing this Zoom breakout room thing with Soundtrap enhanced our social atmosphere. A huge aspect of marching band, if maybe some of you know, is just that social atmosphere. So we're trying to cultivate that in some type of like virtual environment. And one kind of cool thing is that one person, while having Soundtrap open, they can actually monitor their sound over Zoom, and other people can play along with the person who's monitoring that sound over Zoom. And even if it's like, I've been doing this with actually a friend of mine from North Carolina I went to high school with. We actually sometimes will get together at night and just jam together over Soundtrap and Zoom, and we'll be performing together, listening to one another. It just has to be free rhythm because of the latency issues. So with that, let's demonstrate this first concept, Dr. McClaflin and Shelby. So let me go ahead and share actually, I'm not going to share my screen just yet, but I am playing an instrument. I'm playing a Rhodes right now. That's going to be kind of, the sound is coming from Soundtrap, and you should be able to hear this. Let's see here. Let me get that Soundtrap record enabled. Now you're going to hear two of my voices, which is why I'm not going to talk very much, but you should be able to hear the Rhodes now. Ian, can you hear this? Okay, great. Cool. So first of all, Shelby, what key do you want to do? I was thinking like D minor, F major. Is that cool?
Yeah, that'd work.
Cool. And then Ian, like just a slow 4/4. Is that cool?
Yep.
Beautiful. All right, so we're just going to play together. This is just an idea I was just messing around with right before we got on this call. So I'll play this for Ian and Shelby to play along with so they can start developing some ideas. And then we'll take turns with who's muted and unmuted so that maybe we can play along with our percussionist, who is Dr. McClaflin. So here we go. Cool. Do you all have kind of an idea of what to do there, Ian and Shelby? Some sort of idea going? Let's get a quick tempo check here. Could you hear that metronome, Dr. McClaflin? Okay, cool. Could you unmute and count us off, and we'll play together? But you unmuted this time?
Yep. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. McClaflin. Shelby, you feeling good with this idea we got going?
Yeah, it's working for me.
Okay, cool. So let's now, I'm going to share my screen here. there. Okay, so now we're going to go in and just record that idea. So I'll go first here. I'm just going to tighten up that region size really quick. Wonderful.
Alex, can you turn the volume up on just on the Soundtrap track of that a little bit?
Yep. Can you hear that a little better, Taylor?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, cool. All right, so now while I'm going to show you all just a video of kind of our students' work using the same sort of process, going back and forth in Zoom, kind of brainstorming ideas. That was a very condensed version of how this was happening at our marching percussion camp back in August. But while I show you this video, Dr. McClaflin and Shelby are going to turn their their Zoom output down and start recording their parts I just saved so you can sync. And then I'm going to show you all the product of our students' work with this concept here. Just let me reshare my screen here. All right. All right, so here you go. This is kind of our students' work using this creative composition approach using Soundtrap and trying to learn the programs. This was very early on.
Lacking social interaction, it's been kinda tough. Feeling like Kyle Massey off, life is rough. Got a fast pass for the struggle bus. Beat so hard, but these rhymes stay silly. Not a rapper, but these bars, they stay with me. You see in perk, mark stays on my shirt. Here comes a vibe, everybody hit the dirt.
Cool. Get my video going again here. All right. Can you hear me again? I just switched vocal mics.
Yep.
Oh, good. Excellent. Sweet. So that was the first thing. So let's check back in with Dr. McClaflin and Shelby. How are the parts coming there? Excellent.
They're good.
Well, let's see what we got. Sync up here. Cool. We got Cajon in. Just in time. There we go. Excellent. Let's hear what we got. Wonderful. Hey, Shelby, nice mandolin playing. We've got a EP drop in here in a couple weeks, I think. So anyway, did that audio come through nice, Taylor? That was good. Okay, excellent. Cool. So now I'm going to stop sharing again. We're going to move on to this next concept. So again, that was kind of our approach to learning the software. We would be in Zoom breakout rooms, just collaborating on some sort of creative thing. And then Dr. McClaflin and I would kind of bounce around the breakout rooms, offering technological feedback and also compositional feedback as needed. So moving down the handout here, this is the Zoom Soundtrap as a rehearsal and recording tool. This was kind of really originally what we were planning on using Zoom and Soundtrap for, but the creative composition thing really was just so much fun that I wanted to show that. The first thing I'll say is that since May, we have been using Zoom as a synchronous rehearsal tool, using coordinated microphone techniques. So we actually conducted our marching percussion auditions. That way we had 2 marching percussion auditions, and then auditionees were giving a Zoom call set of information. They would join the call, and our subsection leaders, so Shelby and a few of her peers, actually mostly led those sessions. We had like a practice round with the student leadership team where we gave them information about how to do the coordinated microphone muting and all those things to be productive in a Zoom rehearsal. It actually ended up working fairly well. It's important that when you do this, everyone has a metronome. With marching percussion, we want people to be playing as much as possible. We don't really want there to be really any downtime. The more they're playing, the more reps they're getting, and the better they're going to be at playing whatever it is we're working on. It's kind of the curse of the instrument, whereas like brass players, for example, there's kind of a limit to how much they can play. Unfortunately, percussionists can play like for 6 hours a day. And so that, is something we just kind of have to do. Yeah, and the other thing was cool because like they would take turns unmuting their microphone, and then the section leader or Dr. McClaflin or myself, if we were in the breakout room with them, would give them feedback based off of what they were hearing on their rep. And then everyone could play along as well because, again, they're playing with the metronome. Which is a reminder, Dr. McClaflin and Shelby have your metronome ready to go here in just a second. So once the music was sufficiently prepared with our Zoom rehearsals, students would then go into Soundtrap and record their parts into Soundtrap individually. And then they could go back and listen to the Soundtrap session after everyone had recorded, and then they could make really fine-tuned, meticulous corrections while listening together about the performance that they heard. So if someone was a little slow on the left hands or on the and of four or something like that, the subsection leader could be giving that comment while they were listening in the Zoom call through shared screen and audio to the Soundtrap session that everyone was also working in. Some sections of the band took like an independent study approach with this. So they were all in a Soundtrap session and a Zoom call at the same time. But instead of like rehearsing together, like for example, our snare drum section and our tenor drum section did, some of them played along to a guide track. And I'll show you an example of that here in just a second. And essentially just all the individuals would just work with the guide track and the internal Soundtrap metronome to record their parts into Soundtrap. And then once that was all done, again, they would listen back as a subsection and just critique themselves and try to improve whatever it was they had recorded. So the first thing I want to demonstrate here is just our Zoom rehearsal process. So Shelby and Ian got our pads ready to go. We're going to rehearse a section from our show. This is measure 9 in the theme song from Avengers. Let me get my metronome set up here. Can you all hear the metronome? Shelby? Okay. And that is too fast. It's 120. That would have been fun. All right, so let's play 9 to 17 a couple times, Shelby and Ian. Ian and Shelby, y'all hearing everything okay? Okay, again. Excellent. So now that we've had a couple reps with, say, the subsection leader, we're going to turn it over to another member of the subsection. I'm going to turn it over to Shelby this time. Shelby, would you mind unmuting your microphone and taking us through a couple times of that?
Sure. Can you hear the metronome? Okay.
Cool. So obviously, as you heard there, sometimes there is a small little latency issue, but it isn't that common. So, and that's something we've had to deal with on multiple occasions. But cool. But that's the idea. So we would rehearse in Zoom Soundtrap, or in Zoom, and at this point, based off of what we heard, we could offer feedback to each individual person based off of their performance. And then once we felt that a section or an entire piece was good to go, let me share my screen again and sound. And let me go ahead and mute this stuff and bring this on. I'm just going to update the Soundtrap session, Ian and Shelby, so we're hearing the Avengers stuff. Now we can go into the Soundtrap session and work with the internal metronome. The tempo is 120. Let me go ahead and adjust that, but I'm not going to adjust the audio tracks. Now we should be able to hear this part that we just played. Cool. So that was the part that we just were rehearsing together. And also, if you noticed, I had the guide track going as well. Yeah, and that the pad part, that was what I had pre-recorded this before this started. But Ian and Shelby, would you mind going ahead and recording your parts in there, and then we can go
Hey.
back and listen? Yeah.
Hey, Alex, can I pause for just a sec? Sorry to do this, but one of the participants is saying that they're not able to hear the guide track, which is weird. I'm able to hear it. I can hear everything. I can hear your mic. I can hear the Soundtrap audio.
Mhm.
Could you just do a quick unshare of your screen and reshare?
Absolutely, no problem.
Maybe that's where it's coming from.
Yep.
And
I also did turn it off there for a second so you could hear the pad. So let me play it one more time. Are they able to hear it now, Taylor?
I'm checking.
Okay, cool.
If you're listening, will you just throw in the chat and let us know yay or nay? Can you hear that? Yes or no? Yep, Steve's a yes. Yes and a no. 2 yeses, 1 no. Yes, yes. Okay. I will. I'll just take it up with this one participant and see if we can troubleshoot that individual.
Okay, cool.
Thanks. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Yeah, so that is just a quick note about the guide track. So the guide track is something I just make. I just usually export it from Finale, honestly. I usually write all the marching percussion parts for our show, and then I send it to the students over the summer so they have something to practice along with. And it came in really handy this year because we actually were forced to go to an all virtual environment in September, and we weren't able to rehearse as a full marching band because there was some pandemic related issues within our band. So we actually were using Soundtrap for 2 weeks straight. And we recorded one of our show tunes, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, for this year, entirely using Soundtrap, which I'm about to show you here in a second. And the guide track approach was particularly helpful, especially for our wind players who needed a reference of pitch. Our percussionists tended to prefer to listen along to just the internal metronome, and the center player or the section leader, they're recording, but the wind players seem to be more successful when they have the guide track and the metronome going at the same time. So while Shelby and Ian are finishing that up, I'm going to show you actually a video that we produced of our marching band tune, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, using Soundtrap entirely, which was super fun. Woo! Cool. All right, yeah, so that was UCM Marching Mules there with the Soundtrap Zoom rendition of Ain't No Mountain High Enough. That was really fun to put together. So our last, oh, actually, let's check in with Dr. McClaflin and Shelby, see how the recordings are coming here. Share that again. Excellent. And you just about good. Excellent. So while we're waiting on Dr. McClaflin, actually, let me let him record.
And so I guess what you're looking at, Alex, is that icon on the top right of the collaborator, and there's like that red dot that shows that he's recording. Is that what you're looking at?
I could just see him on the Zoom call that he was recorded. I know how frustrating it is when you're trying to record and someone hits play on something and it's not lined up at all. So I just wanted to let him do that. Ian, and he's done. Perfect. Thanks, Ian. Let me get that. There we go. So let's see how we sound. Cool. And for some reason anyway, it's cool. So this opening section, like if I were being picky here, I would talk about how one of us is rushing in the first 4 beats. We didn't arrive to that rim shot together. So, I mean, we could sit here and dissect it. We could solo voices, solo tracks, listen to 2 at a time, and we could figure out the exact spot and diagnose exactly what an individual is doing that they need to adjust in the next time they record it. So this was kind of our approach to not only producing that song, but also when we could only rehearse virtually, you can also use it again as a way to improve the takes and fix issues with performance. Great. So now the last topic I wanted to talk about here was the synchronous recording in Soundtrap. This one is pretty fresh for us. And I will just put a disclaimer here that it does require pretty strong internet connection, but it does work a fair amount of the time, and it's pretty cool when it does work. So if it's something that works for you, then awesome. I like doing this because especially with like marching percussion, like everyone is going to get better when they're able to play in that live environment or when you can get it as close to that as possible, because there are these small adjustments you have to make when you're performing that are based on what your section leader is doing. And so trying to simulate that as best as possible is usually going to yield the cleanest or the tightest performance. So I wanted to go through these instructions. These instructions probably are going to come across as a little bit confusing, but I think that when we just do it, it will make a little more sense. But essentially, one person can share their computer audio and mute their microphone in Zoom. So essentially, I would have my microphone muted, and I'll share my screen and sound, so you can see the you can hear my sound coming through Soundtrap essentially, because I'll be monitoring through Soundtrap. So let me just do that really quick. Hello, can everybody hear me? Is one sound you're hearing instead of 2?
Yep.
It's fairly clear. Okay, cool. I can hear 2 of me, but that's okay. All right, so that's because of the latency. So you can hear me right now, even though my Zoom microphone is muted, because I'm monitoring through Soundtrap, or with the Soundtrap signal through Zoom, and my screen and audio are shared. So because this is really difficult for me to do, I'm going to go back to the Zoom session. I'm hearing like 2 of me, and I can't talk like that. So now I can do that a little easier. So that makes it so the individual can still be heard in a Zoom call even though their microphone is muted. So the next thing is everyone is going to hit record at the same time in Soundtrap without the internal metronome on. So we're going to have the Soundtrap metronome off when we do this. But everyone's going to hit record at the same time, just in some random space in the Soundtrap session. And everyone is going to listen to my monitor signal coming through Zoom, and that's what they're going to play with. I'm going to be listening to a metronome, an external metronome that's coming from my phone. And because of the latency issue, I'm actually going to take my monitor sound off. I'm going to remove those headphones. So all I'm going to be listening to is the metronome sound and my live performance sound. Good. And then after the fact, all you have to do is line this stuff up. So we're having a slight issue with internet connection. So just Dr. McClaflin and I are going to do this one. So Ian, you ready to get ready for this one? Let me share I'm already shared. Can everybody hear me again?
Yep.
Excellent. So Ian, just a reminder, record off of that guide track.
So you have a metronome in your ears, is that right, Alex?
Excellent. Can you hear my pad sound, Ian? Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to take the headphones off now, but before I do that, let's hit record together. You ready? 1, 2, 3, record. And as I mentioned, I'll turn the metronome off. Cool. Can everybody hear me again? Excellent. So now let me sync up. All right. And as I mentioned, I'll turn the metronome. Cool. So there's just a quick example of how that works. Probably our third one was a better performance, but that's the idea of how the, yeah, Dr. McClaflin's laughing. That's the idea of kind of recording synchronously though you kind of have to do a couple weird things in there. But it works. It's a lot of fun to do. So that was all we had. If there's any questions about anything.
So yeah, everyone can just throw the questions in the chat. I have a question while we're waiting for any other ones coming in. What challenges did you face like with your students in terms of like their gear or their internet connection or anything along those lines?
Yeah, and that was and that the full marching band production of Ain't No Mountain High Enough. That's a great case study of that because pretty much for everyone, we were using like laptop microphones. And of course, that's not ideal. But the fact of the matter is we were all confined to our house and we weren't able to meet in person. And also we've got these room capacity restrictions in place at UCM that are all geared towards making it a safe environment for all the students and things. So sharing our music technology spaces with a full marching band was not the smartest decision for us, especially when we're supposed to be quarantining as a group. So we were using mostly laptop microphones, but I think there's this saying called the best microphone is the one you have. So learning how to set the level properly, learning where to position the microphone for each instrument. These were all things that we discussed and were a part of our process in teaching Soundtrap and teaching how to produce the best quality sound possible. So definitely it was a wide range of what people had, because we also had music technology students who had like the highest quality microphone that they had. It was pretty cool. But definitely that, and also internet access were challenges. We had a couple instances of that we had to deal with at the marching percussion camp, but we would usually find solutions based on using campus Wi-Fi or something like that once they all got to campus.
Gotcha. Cool. Can you see that question from Steve?
Yes.
And just in case anyone's watching this on the recording later on, the question is the synchronous recording actually sync? Players are hearing and playing with the other player, or is it just close, like about the same time? Not sure if I quite understand that.
Yeah, so I mean, like I would say it's synchronous with limitations. So like, for example, I can't listen to Ian. The only person whose sound was being sent to the other players were what was my sound. And we did try this with our full snare line at a rehearsal a few weeks ago, and it did work fairly decently. But again, like it's just one person's sound that's being sent over Zoom, the Soundtrap signal going through Zoom. So yes, everyone is recording like at the same time with that signal, but like I can't listen to what Dr. McClaflin is also playing because of the latency issue. But kind of the cool thing is, yeah, we're both in somewhat close to real time, I guess, playing together. It's not like I'm recording, then saving, and then he's syncing, and then he's recording with that. It's like they're listening to an actual monitor mix in somewhat real time.
And oh, cool. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you too. Thanks for that question.
And with the students that you're working with, these are all or primarily the marching band students, not like music tech students, right? So like were they coming in with any recording experience or not?
Yeah, so for the stuff we've kind of discussed today, that was done all with the marching band and marching percussion section. Mm-hmm. And there are some students in there that are music tech majors, but it's certainly not the majority by any means. The marching band, I believe, is pretty much every year majority non-major students, though we do have about half every year that's music majors, music ed majors in particular, and some music tech majors are in there as well, and also some music performance majors. But we also have used this with the percussion studio of music majors. We did this collaboration with the UCM Creative Writing program here at UCM, where creative writing students sent us poems that they wrote, and then I put the students in small groups, and they worked to musically represent in Soundtrap the poems that were sent to them, and that was fun. But we didn't actually use like the live performance or the live rehearsing aspect as much. It was a lot of like just composing a fixed media piece that would then be played on the percussion ensemble concert. But it was also a fun project.
And what was like the response from students about that, about the kind of the composition side of things? I guess there's kind of two questions in there. Had they done a lot of composing before, and what did they think when you did do it?
Yeah, so I'll say this. Maybe we can ask Shelby, because Shelby is a student, and she could probably respond to that. Well, Shelby, before I answer, why don't you go first?
So I know me personally, I haven't done like a lot of composing or anything before this. I'm an aviation major. I'm doing a music minor, so I'm not a music major. But I mean, I've like just lately in general with everything going on, I've been getting more into like trying to compose just on my own for fun. And honestly, Soundtrap kind of like helped me get into that because like it's something I can use to kind of like take what I come up with and like actually hear what it would sound like. But yeah, before this, like I didn't really have much experience with composition, so it was just kind of a cool way to, I guess, kind of get into it and learn more about it for me.
Cool.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just add to that. Yeah, Shelby is, first of all, like a rock star student, and that's one main reason why she's here today. But I mean, awesome violinist, awesome mandolin player, and the section leader for the percussion section. So she does a lot of things and is a great player, and is also super into what she does. So I would say that the marching percussion students in particular enjoyed the process, especially the creative composition stuff. I would say a good portion of the full marching band also enjoyed it, though it was just, it's not the same as being on the marching band field. I mean, it certainly doesn't replace that. And I think that pretty much all the students understood, this is a temporary thing while we're quarantined. And I think that they all appreciated that this was something that was allowing us to continue doing this thing in this unprecedented time with the pandemic. And they were still able to meet with their peers and play music together, rehearse in some way. Whether or not they all enjoyed the composition project, I can't speak for all 200 members of the marching band. I'm sure there were some people that probably weren't too pumped about it, but I think everybody, again, at least appreciated that we were still able to do something together.
Awesome. It looks like there's another question from Steve and a comment too. Are the students doing anything with the compositions and the jams that they made as they learned? The video montage was super cool. And he said, at the Light Music, we're seeing that students' creativity, composition, improv has been super engaging for students and inspiring for our programs.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. At the Light Music, is that a program, Steve, or an organization? I haven't heard of it. I'll let you respond to that. Yeah, in terms of what have we been doing with them? Well, I mean, I guess one of the cool things was it was featured on the Soundtrap EDU blog, so I appreciate that, first of all, Taylor and everybody at Soundtrap. So that was one cool thing. And then also we try to have a pretty active YouTube channel and social media accounts, so we did share those compositions on Facebook, Instagram, and our YouTube channel, so all those are accessible there. But yeah, I hope the students will, share their work with people, because again, yeah, like you, I agree. I think that they came up with some cool stuff.
So I have another question, Alex, which is kind of going back to what we were talking about a second ago regarding some of this stuff is just like a Band-Aid, right? Like we can't be in person, so we're finding ways to kind of work around it. What do you think, though, if anything, you'll keep doing even when we go back to being able to rehearse in person, and which things do you think we'll keep, or do you think anything will transfer into the future of the program? Soundtrack.
Yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, I can speak to that on a personal level. And like even before the pandemic, I mean, I was doing file shares, sharing Ableton sessions with colleagues of mine. I mean, one of the last creative things that I've done was a composition I did. One person from Philly one person from Lansing, Michigan, and I was in Missouri. And we were just bouncing things back and forth and just giving ideas to one another. And then we showed up together, and we had 3 days to be able to perform that thing that we had been working on. So, I mean, like, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's really going anywhere. I'm going to continue using it. I think that the pandemic in many ways has made us realize that we don't always have to get on an airplane to go and travel for a conference, or we don't always have to get on an airplane to go give a master class. We can find ways of doing this thing, making music together, giving master classes, teaching over Zoom, and also we can do it in a way that's kind of more healthy for the environment since we're not getting on that airplane. So I, for one, am 100% committed to continue doing this in a lot of ways. In terms of the teaching, though, I do think that, or I hope that a lot of the students that have experienced this year will find ways of continuing to do it. I mean, because the fact is, the summers are going to come and they're all going to leave one another and spend a couple minutes away from one another. And this is a fantastic tool for being able to continue making music together, continue working together, even in a virtual way. And, you know, that's the real world. So I hope that the students will continue to do this. I think they will. And also, whenever I'm able, I will certainly encourage it and foster it in whatever curriculum it is that we have in the percussion studio or marching percussion program.
Beautiful. Well, it looks like we're coming up on time, and I don't want to drag it on past anyone else's comfort level or whatever. So if there's any last questions, drop them in. And this is your last chance. I will put some links in the YouTube description. So I'll grab some of those YouTube videos if people want to check them out. But I would just like to say one more time, thank you so much. Not only for being here and for, you know, sharing all this information that is so useful and so pertinent right now, but also just for all the effort that y'all have put into developing these methods and, you know, finding a way to keep going with the music and keep music education going despite, you know, the circumstances. So it's really inspiring and exciting for me to see the innovation and all the hard work that y'all have been putting in to keep things going. So thank you.
Appreciate it very much, Taylor, and thanks to you all for the awesome software, the online DAW. It's really awesome that we wouldn't have been able to do or have the experiences we had without a tool like this, and it's been really fun to get to know. And thanks to everyone who's here today, and also Steve. I've got the URL pulled up in my browser, so I'll be checking that out here pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks.
And I'll have this recording up soon.